I was walking down the street and saw a gallery that looked really interesting to me. It kind of felt like it belonged in New York City. And again, even though I didn't make anything, I did love art. So I went into the gallery, and I just immediately fell in love with just the whole vibe of it and the art. It was abstract art. It was encaustic. I mean, I didn't know it was encaustic because I didn't know what the word encaustic meant, but it was encaustic, it was wax, it was plaster, it was textural, it was some cement. It was just really, really like kind of my vibe. So I asked the woman who was at the desk if she could tell me about the artist, because it seemed like almost everything was from the same artist, and it turned out that she was the gallery owner and the artist. Her name was Patricia Larson. And she and I just sort of hit it off. We sat down. Nobody came in the gallery. Gallery closed soon after that. But she just told me a little bit about her art and herself. And I just was just mesmerized by the whole story and by her. And I bought 2 small pieces, went home and went on with my life, and that was, in my mind, the end of the story. And then a few weeks later, I received a postcard from her in the mail, and it was a handmade postcard. And I was just really touched on a lot of levels. I wasn't like a big art buyer, so the idea that an artist would send me something, a postcard, that was pretty cool, and it was a handmade postcard, and I loved it. So I decided I needed to thank her by sending her a handmade postcard, which was really, again, the first thing I made in, I don't know when, since grade school, not art school, grade school. And she did me the favor, ultimately, of sending me something else a couple weeks later, which was just this little page torn out of a book that had a little painting on it. And I was, again, sort of mesmerized by it, but also a little frightened by it, because I was thinking, okay, now I have to make something bigger. And I basically went out and I got a little watercolor kit, and I don't even know if what she made was watercolor, but I kind of copied as best as I could, and I mailed it back to her. And this was just the beginning of what I came to later realize was a male art relationship, because she was in Vancouver, I was in New York, and she just kept sending me things and sending me things, and they were just unbelievably amazing to me. And there was just something special about this to me. That this person who really I didn't know was sending me these gifts, and they were all handmade, and they were all very personal. So she would cut out pictures from magazines, and then photographs of me. She would put my head in it. She put it on the outside of the envelope, and it was just like a whole nother world to me. And that period of time, hello, come on in. It was a rough period of time. This was the year, just to give you a headset. 2001, 9/11 happened. I worked in a hospital. It was just a rough period of time. And this just brought me sort of an escape and joy and therapy and a whole new hobby and a new friend, because Patricia and I and her family, we became really, really close, traveled together. We went to Italy together. She moved to Mexico. I helped move her. We're still really good friends all these years later. But the unintended consequence at first was that she gave me an outlet. Because as a therapist, especially post 9/11, it was just really hard and very full-on, intense world. And I didn't really have art before as an outlet, but it just became my therapy. So I could just throw myself into it and learn and copy her. Really, it was all about copying her. And she ended up really becoming my teacher, my mentor, my muse. It wasn't that she designated herself in that role, nor did I ever say to her, oh, you're my muse. But she knew and I knew, and she was also a person who lived her life as an artist. So 24/7, she was an artist. I don't mean she made things 24/7. She just was always creative in whatever she did. So I really learned from her what it was like to make art and to be an artist, and what that set me on the path to being was a collaborative artist. So I wasn't, I didn't go to art school, I didn't learn technique, I didn't sit down in my studio and draw and sketch and make art, and it was never a solitary thing for me. It was always community-based. And that has become really the core of everything I've done since then. I love connecting with people. I love doing collaborations. I love teaching. Everything I like, even social media, it's about the connection. So that just took on a life of its own, and I just was doing it for fun. And then one thing led to another, and it just became more important to me. And you guys remember blogs? Remember blogs? I mean, I know some people actually have blogs still, but blogs were big. And I started a blog in 2007. Do you want some? There's like refreshments here. Do you
Yeah,
know?
I'm sort of embarrassed to get up.
No, oh please, no. I want you to think of like we're all hanging out in the studio,
I know.
and you want to get a drink or.
I just have a tickle in there.
Yeah, you just get up and do it. This is not formal. Like, it'll freak me out if this were formal. You can edit that out if you it just became more important to me, and I started this blog, and the blog led to just me connecting with more people, and it just sort of unexpectedly began to lead to opportunities, and those opportunities I took. I'm always one to say, you have to live your life with your eyes open. There's things that come to you, there's chances that you have, there's opportunities that you have, that if you are sleeping or not feeling able, or in that other space that we all get into all the time because of life, you miss out on chances that can bring you things. So I just try to live my life with my eyes open and be aware that sometimes things just fall in my lap, unbelievably so. And so one thing led to another, and art just became more important to me, and I began not to think of it as a career. Again, this was 2007, 8, 9, 10, but to think of it as something that was a viable, I don't know what, more than a hobby, but not a job. And I'm sure many of you, you do things like that too. Like maybe you have a job, but you also create, and maybe you have an Etsy shop or you sell things, sort of in that middle ground of nowhere, but everywhere at the same time. And that was a really good decision, because as things built up and I spent more time doing that, I started to have opportunities to teach, and teaching allowed me to have opportunities to travel. I was doing all these things online in my blog called a project called The Pulse. Basically, The Pulse was all about me interviewing artists, but doing it in a little psychological way. Instead of asking like what your favorite color is, I asked like, what color don't you like, or have you had a problem in your family because they don't understand your art, or do you use art as therapy, that kind of thing, kind of bridging my two lives. And that happily, bizarrely led to a publisher reaching out to me, asking me if I wanted to turn that project into a book, which I did. And once that book came out, that was 2012, that just sort of changed my direction, because then people knew who Seth was, and things started happening. So long story short, from there on, I just started to make choices of doing things that were connecting with other people. So I started to create products. So those of you who know me know this, that I'm assuming some of you you're here because it's close to home, and maybe you don't really even have a big sense of what I've done. But I just over the years started to design products. So I design products that include paints and inks and stamps and stencils and lots of things like that. And that led me into the world of product design, which is a whole nother world. And then again, the teaching and the traveling and things like that. And many of you I know very, very well from connecting with you in retreats. Where's Ellen?
Here.
Okay, hiding in the back. Ellen, some of you may know Art Is You, which was a huge, huge, huge retreat that happened in Connecticut and all over everywhere.
We missed it.
And a lot of you I know from there, and Ellen was the person who spearheaded that. So everything I did got me connected with people. And then the events like this. So as things unfolded, again, just sort of doing my thing, I made the transition from full-time psychologist to part-time psychologist, part-time art person, and I was, at that point, on my own in a private practice, so I had control over my schedule. So as people left my practice, I just started to do more art, and then more art, and then more art, until one day it felt right to become just a full-time artist and retire from psychology. It took a long time to make that change. But that happened in 2018. So since then, I've been full-time art, although honestly, I was probably full-time art for about 5 years before that, in terms of what I did. So, my art is mixed media art. It is impossible to define. Those of you who make mixed media art know that if you meet somebody like that doesn't understand what it is, and they say, "What do you do?" and "Oh, I make stuff." And then they say, "Well, what do you make?" and you're like, "Art." Well, like paint, like mixed media, and then you get that blank stare. And then you try to explain it. Well, anything goes. You can use paper, you can use fabric, you can use metal, you can use anything, and they get the blank stare. And then you show them something, and you still get a blank stare, because that's what mixed media is. It's like freedom. Because my mixed media is different than your mixed media, and there's no definition, which is really what I love. But among the many things that I use in mixed media have always been fabric. Now, when I use fabric, I use like, see this piece of fabric here? This is big for me. Like, I will use like 4 inches by 4 inches, 2 inches by 2 inches. I tear fabric. I hand stitch, but I hand stitch in the most wonky, poorly, impossible to like label stitches. It's just the way I work. I try to create that way. So having a fabric background, always thinking, because I'm always thinking like, oh, it'd be cool to have a line of fabric and blah, blah, blah. But happily, extraordinarily, again, in one of those moments of just keeping my eyes open, putting myself out there, using fabric, etc. Free Spirit, who I think most of you probably know. If you know fabric, you know Free Spirit. They reached out to me to see if I might be interested in creating a line. And that was just one of those banner days of like, I can't believe this is my life. And of course I said, yeah, for sure. And I just want to tell you a little bit about the company. And also, you guys may know all of this anyway. But for me, the world of quilts and fabric is completely new. And it is a world that is completely different from the world of paper arts, both in terms of how they're manufactured and also sort of sometimes the style and the way people work. Like, I have talked about quilts for years because one of my things, I have all these mantras that I say over and over again, is that in mixed media, overthinking is the death of creativity. Once you start overthinking, you completely lose the freedom and the critic comes out. But my example is, if you're like making a quilt, you probably got to think a little bit. And it's sort of a whole different approach. Although maybe you guys will tell me I'm a quilter and I never think. Does anybody never think when you make a quilt?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes you just
Just go.
Yeah, you just
All right, I like that actually. So Free Spirit, I look at Free Spirit as a collaboration. Just like I look at everything as a collaboration. They've reached out to me, and the way it worked with us is that a long time ago, because this started almost 2 years ago, even though this is just in your creative hands in the last month or so, basically I had a Zoom call. Because at that point we were doing everything by Zoom, and I connected with two people, Debbie, who is my go-to, and Jenna, who is the person who turns what I do into fabric. And I basically showed them dozens and dozens and dozens of pieces of art, and dozens and dozens and dozens of pieces of things I made particularly for the fabric. And they basically said, yeah, no, yeah, okay, maybe, yeah. And we ended up with a bunch of stuff, which I mailed them, and they photographed, and they mailed back to me. And then we just began the process of creating. Everything in my fabric is my art. It's all digitally worked on, but there's nothing in there that's not my art. So everything you see is just from what I've created. And we went back and forth, and we came up with 12 designs, which created Storyboard, which we developed in the sense that every piece in some way, shape, or form should work with every other piece. That's something that's really important with me in my products. I don't want you buying something and then spending money on it and not being able to use it with something else, or use it once and then not use it again. It's always about trying to enhance your creativity. So the idea behind Storyboard was that, for me, the pieces in the collection tell my story, because some of them were created for the fabric, some of them are older, some of them go way back, and it's really like my artist's story. And my whole notion was that when you guys take the fabric and you make what you make with it, you are using it to tell your story. The whole idea behind it is that it gives you a chance to express yourself, to be you and put you on would normally say like paper, but on the fabric. And it went back and forth until we came with the 12, and then I let it up to fate to see if people in the fabric world would, accept this. But Free Spirit is amazing. Free Spirit also has some of the most incredible designers behind them, so I feel like I'm among an elite group. And Free Spirit also has Tim Holtz, which I don't know if you guys have heard of Tim Holtz, but if you haven't, you should look him up. So, Tim kind of laid the groundwork for an artist like me, because he brought sort of a different style to, I think, quilting, and certainly to Free Spirit. So I appreciate that he did that. I want to talk to you just a little bit about some of the fabrics and the samples. But before I shift there, does anybody have any questions about anything you're dying to know?
Do you have any of your art that you started with?
I do! It's like you were just like living in the next, which I love. So that's really what I wanted to show you, because to me it's bizarrely incredible. And now that I get it, but it was all so magical to me. So what I did, sort of coming from more of sort of an art, paper art background, so I immediately, like, to make this feel more comfortable for me, I put it on these panels. So this does not necessarily show the whole repeat, because they're just the one size, but it gives you an idea of the fabric. And although it's not as fabric-y, like I came to realize once I actually got a lot of the fabric, because in the beginning I only got a very small amount, showing fabric is so much better than showing it like this, but be that as it may. So I'm just going to take a few of these, more than a few probably, so I can kind of show you. I told you more than a few.
All of them.
All of them. Well, let's start with these, sort of where these came from. So when you look at this one's called Type. This is pretty typical of my work. What you see, I'm just all about the idea of more is more. It's layers. It's, when you think you're done, put it aside and come back to it and add 50 more layers. And this basically is a collage, my work, and it has some overlays. So if you look over here, the overlays are a typewriter kind of keyboard, and then this is actually a vintage game board. So those were old vintage things that I took photographs of, turned the photographs into rubber stamps, because I do have a rubber stamp collection, and then the rubber stamps were used over the collage. So I'm just going to sort of pass this around, but what I really want to show you is the collage, which is just on the top here. So this is what it started as, and then it was turned into that. And this is really typical of my work. I mean, I'm not going to say this is big for me, but I just work small. Everything I have is small. It's like I make small mini books all the time, 2 inches by 2 inches, and the biggest thing I've ever made was a piano. For a project in New York City, I did all this on a piano, but mostly this is it. So I'm actually going to pass that with that, just so you'll see how it was shifted. And it was digitally. Jenna did an amazing job. So one thing that we did do was alter some of the color tones. They're all the same color ways, but we really wanted to make sure that all 12 designs would work together. And so maybe there was a blue that was a little off, so the blue was shifted a bit. I do not think these are trade secrets, because Shelley hasn't pulled me out and said, you can't be saying this. No. This one is amazing to me, so amazing. in terms of what was done with it. So this is called Matrix, and in my world of more is more, I guess this is sort of like the quiet one, kind of, the Blender-ish. But what I really learned about in terms of going from real art to the fabric designs was the notion of scale. Now, I know scale as an artist, but scale where some elements are larger, some are smaller. So this is the piece that was sent to them to create this.
Oh, wow.
So it's just so wild to me that this became this. So when I initially saw this online, when the photograph was sent to me, I didn't have a sense of the scale. So I wasn't really aware that it was so small. But when I saw it, I was thrilled. This is actually, I think, like I have it on the back. Yeah, it's a 2.5 by 4 inch repeat. I mean, it's minuscule. But what you can see is how that large element, this really scratchy piece, turned into that. And so I really credit, I don't know how other, maybe you guys probably know, I don't know how other fabric artists talk, if they were doing this kind of thing, but like this is such a collaboration between me and the company. I just feel it's really important to stress that, because this would not look like this without working with the people who then made the magic and understood the fabric world in a way that I certainly didn't at that point. So this was exciting to me, because then I started to realize in my head as I thought about going forward, oh, I see, I can like design this way, but it could become that way. So that just opened up all these ideas. This one, which is, it's been really interesting for me to see the popular ones, because sometimes as an artist or a designer, and many of you make things, so this, that you could fall in love with something and think, wow, this is incredible, and you put it on Instagram and you get 3 likes, and then you're desperate for something to put online because you gotta put something up online, and so you just grab some photograph of something and then you get like 3,000 likes or something like that. You just don't know. But this has been popular, and this is called text message, and this is basically a layering of my stamps. So again, I have stamp collection, so I have a whole series of stamps that are words in this old vintage typewriter font. And we picked amongst them, because there are a lot, I have 10 different sets, and then we layered them over a background. So it kind of looks black and white, but it's really not black and white. There's actually some blues and taupes and grays and some other soft colors in here. And what's really been interesting to me is to see how this has been used in quilts. I work very linearly often. I live in New York City. I live in a 29th floor of an apartment, and I look out and I have an amazing view. For the first time in my life in New York, I don't look at either a brick wall or another couple cooking in their kitchen 3 feet away. So a lot of these things sort of represent buildings and windows. And so what I've loved is, like, for example, these elements here. Yeah, you see it right here. So this was cut multiple times horizontally. This is also one of my stamps, a border stamp, and it was used just repeatedly as that element. And I would not have thought of that. And I love that about how people use my stuff, because you guys will do magic that would never in a million years even occur to me. And so when I see this kind of stuff, it's just really like crazy exciting. All right, so one of the things I do a lot is journal. And I've had this journal, this has been done for a few years, but it was a long-term journal. And it was the first journal I created where I decided I wanted to create a journal with no words. Because typically I write in my journals, and even if I don't write like lots of text, there's at least a word. Are there scrapbookers here? It would be at least like a sentiment or a title, that kind of thing. So it does say pours forth. Can't really see it from where you are. My glasses even need glasses to see that when it's close up. But so this is just some of my journaling work. And what I did basically was share the journal with them. And I'll get to a journal page in here. sort of gives you an idea of some of my journal work. All abstract. There
Is it
is.
just art on the paper?
Yeah, so this is just...
You don't have any stuff glued, or you have some things
Oh,
glued?
and I have like collage.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is, I mean, my mixed media art is all over the place, but this is pretty typical of me. So it would be paint and ink and pencil, drawing, a lot of mark making. It would be rubber stamps, stencils, and then it would be collage. I'm big on collage, so I love to glue anything to anything. I mean, nothing's off limits. Those of you who know me know I spend my time in New York City picking up the bristles from the street sweepers. It took me like 3 years to figure out what those little metal long things were, but they're amazing. Like, anything goes. So somehow we came to this spread right here. And this spread was turned into this. Well, you will see some color shift here. But you get the sense of how that became this. And there was a lot of value change. The idea behind value is that you do want contrast. You guys in quilters are amazing with that. To have this basically what kind of white background, so that all the colors pop. To have the dark black, the color here. I mean, you guys are masters at that. And I tend to, in my art, to have a little bit too little. Like, I really love sort of the monochromatic. So when you look at a lot of my things, I mean, there's some value, but here's a good example. There's not much value shift here, dark lights. So, Jenna knows. So Jenna, kind of shifted that creamy palette to a white palette. And this one is great because I also think, for quilting, but for other things too, the idea that these strips sort of lend themselves to patterns like that. I think that's great. I'm working on a project at home which was so gazillion pieces, but I'm kind of doing some weaving with these strips, and then weaving them together. And for me, how many people like to tear their fabric? Tear it?
Yeah.
Okay. And how many people would never in a million years ever tear their fabric? Like, they're going to use a scissor and cut it, or a pizza cutter.
Depends.
That's pretty good.
I'm new to this world. When they connected with me at Free Spirit, I'm like, okay, you know who I am, right? I know. I probably should stop saying this, but I'm always honest, like I'm always transparent. Like, I know nothing about quilts. Like, that, right? You're a quilting company. I love quilts, but I don't know anything. And they're like, we know, we'll take care of it. And they take care of me. Another thing I do a lot of is I make little books. If I call this a book in front of them, it's got a little really simple stitch. But again, this is very typical of my work. And this was chosen. We chose this together, several different pages here, to make Received, which is this. So, you can kind of see it right there, right?
Yeah.
Very little color shift, just maybe a touch of darkening. And then the word Received itself is on that tab, which you'll see when we pass around, and that's like a legit old vintage. It was from like a ledger I had that I pulled off. I am fearless with tearing things apart. Like, there's nothing you can give me that I won't, like, break. It's just, like, it's what I do. You know what? I'm gonna go on this side. You're looking all like, why are you showing it to them first? And then the last thing I wanted to show you was this is Shine, which is one of my favorites. Honestly, a lot of them are my favorites, but I really, really like this. Shine Your Light, that's just one of my stamps. And that's the only element on here that doesn't quote-unquote belong to the art. And this is what the art is and was. So this was made in 2020. It's called The Whisper of Leaves. And you can see, you see it, right? But it's been manipulated. It's been, there's a bit of a color shift. It's definitely darkened a little bit. And then it's been played with. So some of the pieces that you see are literal translations. The photograph was, maybe the color changed a bit, but every element is next to every other element. But this one, as you'll see, it's been moved around a bit. And we're going to go in the back.
What makes that one your favorite?
Oh, I think that one, first of all, I love the colors.
Yeah.
I just really love those colors. I tend to work in two colorways. I tend to work in sort of vintages, and then in sort of, I don't know, sea-tone blues and teals and stuff like that. Those are just my go-tos. And I love my go-tos. I always tell people who say, like sometimes instructors say, you got to step out of your comfort zone, like bring the color you hate and all that. And I'm like, yeah, if you are working in one color and you feel like you want to work in more colors, but you're holding yourself back, do that. But if you work in your colors and you love your colors and you're happy with your colors, why take a color you don't like? I mean, yeah, maybe it's an exercise, but I just like what I like, and I know I make art better with what I like. So that's what I stick with. So that is the colors, and it also captures, I think, the layering. When I handed over the art, I wasn't sure how the art would translate to fabric. Because I'm all about layers and textures, and I personally think they did a phenomenal job with the colors and the sense of depth and shadow. I'm really pleased with that. There was a decision that had to be made early on. I know that a lot of purists, I mean, you guys tell me if I'm wrong, because I am talking about you. A lot of purists do not prefer digitally printed fabric, and I do believe there's some people who won't use that. We went back and forth, and their decision was, in order to capture what my style was, they needed to go digital. And they did, and I'm thrilled. I mean, I don't know what it would have looked like. Who knows, maybe I would have been more thrilled, but I feel like they captured what I wanted to get across.
I would say the quality of digitally printed fabric is really great now compared to. There was a time when digitally printed could be rough and.
Printing, you might have had to make compromises that you wouldn't have wanted to make.
Yeah, there's a gazillion colors in all my pieces. I'm again, one of my mantras is more, as I said. So for me, although I do like sometimes to play with a minimal, restricted palette. Normally it's a lot. So I'm just going to quickly take you through this. This is Wish. This one is a piece that I made for the fabric, and it is made with my stencils. So this is 100% stencil art, basically, and then on repeat for the fabric. This one is called Printed Matter, and this is the other one that's black and white but not black and white, and everything you see here is a stamp. So when I say stamp, I design rubber stamps with a couple different companies, and we layered them. So this I think of this as my art because it's my design, and a lot of my rubber stamps, probably 75%, I hand draw. But this is probably, along with the other text message, the only one that is my art but not sort of made by me, if you know what I mean. This one is also one of my favorites. This one's called Possible. I really love this. I love this for a lot of reasons. It is a collage. It is one of those that's literally the collage, so nothing was done to it. It's just color shift a little bit, but everything you see here is what was on the collage. And I don't know, you guys help me, because I'm learning from the people who know. What do you consider a large repeat in a fabric? It's what size?
Large, 17 inches.
17?
A lot of panels seem to have a 2/3 of a yard. It seems to be if you have a panel, and that's a pretty big. That would be a pretty big repeat, yeah.
Okay, so this one is 18.4 by 18. So it's a big repeat, and the reason why I like that, other than it, shows the whole art, is because it to me it gives me and everybody else options. This whole notion of, if you're going to buy into something I'm selling, I want you to be able to use it in 1,000 different ways. So for me as a collage artist, I have torn this up, to the point where that little square comes out, this segment comes out, the word possible comes out. I feel like there's 50 1,000 different things you can do with this. And in my head, as a non-quilt artist, I kind of conceive of this notion that, you know, this could be a block, this could be a block, this could be a block, that you just get a lot out of it. So I really, really love that. And I also I love the tonal features here. Okay, I should not be hogging all this. So let me do here. Let me go here. And you get a panel, and you get a panel. Okay. This one's called Journey. I know it's going to start getting boring to hear me say this is also one of my favorites. I always like my stuff, like I really do, and it's not at all because of it's like a big ego. It's because if I didn't like it, I would never let it see the light of day from a perspective of a product. If it's going to be me and represent me, I want it to be my favorite. So I really love this one. This is also from a collage, and there's some overlay with some of the stamps. And you may or may not notice this, but we really again wanted to make it cohesive. So when you look at these, some of the stamp elements that are in one have been added to others, so that there's a little bit of a consistency. It may or may not be obvious. Now that you know it, it will be obvious, but I like that because it's a way to use it in your work to bring some cohesiveness that may not smack somebody who's looking at it in their face. Thank you, whoever said that. Thank you. This one's called Linked. This one is a little bit distinct, but I absolutely love this one. I think this one has a batik kind of feel to it. It also, in my head, it is the calm one. It works really, really well with a lot of other fabric, if not mine. But I really like this again because it lends itself to the vertical strips, which can obviously be horizontal strips. I love the notion, those of scrapbookers, maybe everyone in the world knows the term fussy cutting, but the idea that I could cut out these diamonds and use those as appliques, I think that really lends itself. The way this was created, how many people are obsessed? How many people know what a gel plate is or jelly plate is? Okay, and how many people are obsessed with that? Okay, so a jelly plate is just a commercial gel plate. Instead of making it like old school artists with gelatin, so that you know it would rot and be disgusting, you just buy it and you can use it forever and you pull your prints from it. So this was just made on the jelly plate with hand-cut masks to create these lines and elements here. All right. Sorry. Okay, and then last but not least, this one's Storyteller. There's a lot of words like story and storyteller in this to go with the idea of storyboard. So this is also from a collage. Storyteller is one of my stamps. And my happiness with this is just that the white on the original piece is very textural. It's kind of like pasty. And so I feel like they did kind of capture that as good as I think a flat 2D piece could capture that. So it does, I mean, it also feels a little snowy to me, which I kind of like. Yeah, it looks 3D, okay, from far away. So from now on, if you have this, you have to be 10 feet away in order to see it. So I'm not going to pass this one around. Okay, before I just show you a few samples, any questions? Yes.
In your journal, amazing. How do you know when a piece is done?
I love that question. I get that question a lot. Do you? So I have a few answers to that. So I'll just give them all. You're never going to get one from me. Yeah. So first of all, technically, like what you can do is you can take a photograph of it, and you look at it on a computer screen. There's something about seeing this kind of work on a backlit computer screen. Things that you don't see easily in the actual art pop out immediately. Like I often think it's done and then I look and I say, oh wait a minute, that corner is just so unfinished, or it's really unbalanced. So technically I do that. The second thing is I step away, and step away is not like 5 minutes to get a coffee and come back. It's a few days, maybe a few weeks, and you look at it and you have fresh new eyes, and invariably you see something you want to do. Then my stock answer is it's never done. Yeah. It's never done because often, at least me, I change things. I'll find art from a month, a year, 5 years, and I'm just a different artist, and I change it always. always. And then the story I tell, because there's always a story with me. The story I tell is, go back to the guy who's saying, what's mixed media? You got no idea. You tell it to that person, they have no clue. You show them a piece, and you take them back to your space and you show them 1 or 2 or 3 pieces. And you also have like 55 other pieces, but you say, no, I'm not going to show them that. I'm going to show them this one. This is the one. That's how you know you're done. That's the one that you like. You feel so good about that you're going to use it to share with other people. This is what I make. And sometimes everything we make is like that, and then I wouldn't use that. But more often than not, most creatives have doubts and have critics, and a lot of times just don't love their work, or maybe don't feel it's as good as other people's or whatever, and put it aside and maybe feel a little frustrated. Obviously that work is not done, but I kind of say that as a psychologist, is the work's not done, because it's so important to find a way to become comfortable with creating you and where you're at. You don't need to be like that other person. You don't need to make that comparison. It's just natural. But, we all make bad art. And anyone who tells you that they don't is just lying. And for every amazing thing you see on somebody's Instagram that you're thinking, oh my God, I wish I could make like them, trust me when I say, A, they've taken 50 pictures to find that one great picture, and probably they've made 10 things to find that one thing that they're actually going to share. So I've strayed a little bit, but this is what I do when I talk. So yeah, you got to love you. You got to just do you. For me, in the beginning, because I tend to be linear, I really hated that about my work. I just tried to break out of that, but the more I tried to break out of it, the more contrived it got, and the more linear it got, or the more absolute disaster it got. And so at some point I just realized, you know what, that's going to be in my art, and it is in my art, and I'm fine with it, I love it, but I've also learned ways to create without thinking, which is what I teach, so that there can also be some of the sort of more organic, sort of explosive, measured things. It's shocking I never use a ruler. Like, you'd think I use a ruler for everything I do, because really, it's all lines. But no, I at least I don't do that anymore. Anymore. Any other questions? Yes! Love questions.
So have you learned how to sew? Did you get involved?
Are you buying a machine?
Yeah. Have you gotten involved in actually designing the quilts or making the quilts, or did you leave that up to the folks at Free Spirit? Or
okay, well, I am totally comfortable with it because I know my strengths and my weaknesses. So these are patterns from us Sorley girls. The wonderful, amazing folks there also created these two. These patterns are available in this shop, by the by, in case you do want to make a donation. And the information is on here as well. So my story, all right, about 6 years ago, maybe now, I was at Artistic Artifacts, which is just another shop. It's a mixed media shop that's also a fabric and sewing shop that I've taught at for many years. And I love the woman who owns it. Her name's Judy, dearly. Virginia, I'm sorry, in Virginia. And she branched out into sewing machines during one of my visits and sat me down because I made the mistake of saying, oh my God, I always wanted to free motion, thank you, free motion stitching, edit that out please, free motion stitching on paper. Like, it wasn't even fabric at that point, I just love that look. She's like, well, sit down, on the throne, and she showed me, and I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. This is like life-changing. I'm buying that machine. So I bought that machine. It was a baby Bernina, but not a Bernina. Burnett, thank you, okay. And I brought it home, and about 4 weeks later, I sat down, I got it out. I'm like, oh my God, there's a foot pedal? Like, really? This is all news to me. And I tried to... free motion? No, I never got that far. I tried to thread it. And I could not, for the life of me, thread that friggin' machine. Over and over again I tried.
Call Judy?
I called a lot of people. And then I did what anyone would do. I put the machine away.
Oh.
I know, right? So then a bunch of months later, might have even been a year, I went to a studio of a friend, Keisha, who made some of the art here. And she sat me down and I brought my machine. So I had my machine. She showed me how to stitch it. I stitched. And she showed me how to thread it. I threaded it. It took me forever, but I threaded it. And then she had fabric. She had paper. The whole day there, I was so excited. I brought it home and I made the one mistake that you can't make after you're of a certain age, which is to not immediately do it again. And so when I finally brought it out 6 months later, I failed and I put it away. So it is now out of the box and waiting for me to go to YouTube and just watch somebody thread probably the exact same machine so I can do it because I want to do it.
We need to send you to a quilting retreat.
Oh.
Yes.
For a few days.
Tip,
Yes.
instead of unthreading your machine, if you want to change the thread, tie off a little tie, change out the spool, and then pull it through.
Genius. Seriously, that's incredible. Okay, I will remember that. I know, it's pretty, sad,
So
right?
you only have to thread it, remember how to thread it once.
Okay. Okay, so I can bring somebody over to thread it for me once? Will you come over and thread it?
I'd be happy to.
I'm in New York City. Someone's gonna want to go to New York City. So you understand? Okay. So you understand why I felt very compelled to tell Free Spirit like I know nothing about this world. I'm hoping in a year from now I perhaps can have a different story to tell. But I just want to show you a couple things, and I also want to make mention. Excitedly. I don't even know if you guys know this yet. So the fabric collection is done really, really well. I feel incredibly fortunate and kind of honored and just blessed to have been welcomed by the quilting world because it's a quilt company, it's quilt fabric, and yes, it's mixed media, but it's mostly the quilting world who has taken this fabric and the quilt shops. It's only independence. So I'm forever grateful for independence. Everybody who knows me knows I support independence forever. If you're in a class with me, you can't say the M word. You know what the M word is, right?
The J word.
Michaels. Or anything like that. Yeah,
For us, it's
J word.
J
J
word.
word. Okay. Can't say the J word.
Yeah.
No.
Our host is suggesting that maybe now would be a good time to take a little break.
Oh, until the fabric is actually printed, there's very little to go around. So happily, most of the artists I work with scraps. So this is from an artist, Roxanne Evans Stout. I think I've already given away the reveal. But she and I work together a lot, and she also does a lot with fabric and stitching, but she made the scroll. And what I really noticed about this was how, although obviously this is not a quilt, that the same concept, the same properties were used in this as they were in the quilt. So I really like that, a different way to utilize the same material. This is from Keisha. I have a few things from Keisha. She made this wonderful book, and for me, again, the idea of using the fabric in a mixed media way, it's about pulling out little bits and pieces and telling your own story. So for her just to cut out the word journey and highlight that, I thought that was great. And I also thought it was really clever. The covers are cigar box tops.
I thought it looks like it's a bear.
Yeah, it has the stickers from that. And then the inside is just different kinds of paper that she bound together.
Nice.
That I thought was great. And then Keisha is also the person who made Stitch. Stitch says hi to you guys. And I love the little hand in the pocket. So I don't know. I think everybody needs like a hug from Stitch. So we're gonna or a high five. Stitch has a tail. Stitch, by the way, is a they. Is it they? Yeah, so you know, so if you're speaking to them, it's, you know, they pronouns, them pronouns. So Keisha also made this hanging, which I thought was just a really simple idea, but just a really beautiful touch. Again, highlighting some of the words, and then also adding some tail. That was cool. If you, thank you.
I just gotta come home.
Oh, comforting. Stitches has become pretty famous online. If you're interested in the artists, their names and websites and stuff are on here. I just want to show you 3 bags. This is done by a woman named Jessica Schaus, and she seems to be not somebody I knew before, but so prolific, because now that I've connected with her, I see her online, and every day she's posting 5 and 6 bags and things she makes. So if you like them, the patterns are available. You can see what they are. But I just thought they were great. So these I just saw her made, and I bought all 3 from her. I just thought they were so great. So by the by, if you make something with my stuff and you want to make some money, just show them to me. We're going to need a new apartment for all this stuff. So it has the alternating lining, which she does often. It has a little cork, which I thought was a cool touch. And then the matching zipper. But this has the fabric shine. And then this is another pouch, also with a little handle. This is linked, which is this, on the handle. And then Journey is the main fabric. And then beautiful insides, more linked. It's just a nice little touch. And then I think my favorite of the 3, just because how she used it, this is this little pouch from Possible. You know, it's got the little hanger thing and the words Possible, but what I really, really love, which is just such a nice touch, was the placement on the inside, where she used Storyteller, and she placed it so it was there and there. Which is just a simple, but just a really clever idea.
Yeah.
And the first time I saw it, just so unexpected. So really appreciated those.
Does she just sell, she doesn't sell the bags, just the pattern?
She doesn't even sell the patterns. She just posted where you can get the patterns.
Okay.
I mean, maybe I should have told you guys about this in advance. Only buy stuff here.
No, it's fine. No worries.
This is from Rebecca Meyer. I thought this was really amazing. She also asked for scraps. So she made this book, which is just beautiful. It's quilted, which is really beautiful. I'll pass this one around. And what she did was she said she was just loved the fabric enough and had enough so that she decided to do the inside as well. So she included it with a lot of her findings. She loves vintage things, so there's a lot of old vintage buttons and findings and lace and fabric and stuff like that. But I really thought this was a great use of the fabric, very, very mixed media like, but I love that it's also, you know, in the sense that she quilted, so it's sort of quilt-like. I will also say that Jessica, just really generous, filled up one of the bags with quilted scraps, which, like, you know, again, so new to me. I just was like, 3 days I was like dancing on a cloud because they're quilted, so I'm going to be able to put those in my work, which is something I haven't done before. So I'm really excited about that. Check that out. And then I think sample-wise, there's a few more, but I didn't bring them all. And then I just got to talk about these amazing, mind-blowing, incredible, like, quilts. So these 2 are created for Free Spirit. They're Swirly Girl designs. The patterns are available here. I believe that's correct. Did anybody choose to get some? Okay, so I think they're gorgeous. Love how they came out. They were, when I got them, a really nice lesson for me in particularly how my fabrics could be used. As I mentioned 3,000 times, you know, more is more. There's really no quiet in my collection. So being able to see how, you know, people pulled from other collections really makes me happy because, again, I started this day by talking about collaborations. So the whole notion that this is used with some of Tim's fabric, it makes me feel like I'm collaborating with Tim. And when you create something, it makes me feel like I'm collaborating with you. So I really, really love that. And I think especially, and Free Spirit knows this, Tim's line, some of his provisions and other lines just work so well with the colorations.